March 25th, 1 p.m. The safe zone silence felt unnerving. Every creak of the building's structure or gust of wind rattling the barbed wire fence made the hairs on my neck stand on end. Despite the uneasy atmosphere, there was an unspoken relief among the group. For the moment, we weren't being hunted. "How's that data looking?" Price asked, standing behind Green, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her stance was calm, but her eyes betrayed the weight of their situation. Green typed furiously on her laptop, lines of code reflecting in her glasses. "The encryption on this relay network is tighter than anything I've seen. But there's something strange." "Strange how?" Maria asked, leaning on her rifle. Green paused, her fingers hovering over the keys. "There are active pings in the system. Someone else is connected to this network." The air in the room grew tense. "Is it Orpheus?" Tucker asked, his voice low. "Not necessarily," Green replied. "The signal is fragmented. Could be other survivors tapping into it. Or it could be a trap," Price said, her tone firm. "Can you trace it?" Green nodded slowly. "I can try. If they're close, I might be able to pinpoint their location." "Do it," Price ordered. She turned to the rest of us. "Tucker, Maria, secure the perimeter. Calloway, inventory the supplies again. I want to know exactly what we're working with. Let's move." Green's fingers flew across the keyboard as the rest of us prepared for what might come next. The weight of the safe zone's abandonment pressed on us, its empty halls whispering of battles fought and lives lost. Tucker and Maria's movements outside were a constant reminder of how exposed we were, even here. "Got it," Green said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. "The signal's originating less than 3 miles from here. It's in a small, isolated structure. Looks like a maintenance outpost. Do we check it out?" I asked, gripping the Halligan tool tightly. Price's jaw clenched. "If it's survivors, we need allies. If it's Orpheus," she didn't finish the sentence, but we all understood the implication. "Gear up. We move in 30. 2 p.m. The journey to the outpost was eerily quiet. The dense trees cast long shadows over the uneven ground, the light filtering through the canopy in fractured beams. Every sound, a bird's call, a rustle in the underbrush, felt amplified, each one a potential threat. Price led the way, her rifle at the ready. Maria walked beside her, her sharp eyes scanning the forest ahead. Green stayed close to me, her laptop tucked securely in her pack. Tucker and Calloway brought up the rear, their weapons trained on the path behind us. "This place gives me the creeps," Tucker muttered. "Feels like we're being watched." "Keep it together," Price said. "We don't engage unless absolutely necessary." The outpost came into view as we crested a small hill. It was a squat, concrete structure, its walls stained with years of neglect. A satellite dish jutted out from its roof, its surface streaked with rust. The surrounding area was eerily quiet, the air thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. Price motioned for us to halt. "Tucker, Calloway, flank the entrance. Maria, you're with me. Green, stay back until we secure it." We moved into position, our steps silent against the forest floor. Tucker and Calloway took up positions on either side of the doorway, their weapons raised. Price nodded to Maria, then kicked the door open with a single, fluid motion. The room inside was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from a flickering monitor on a desk in the corner. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and machinery. A figure sat slumped in a chair in front of the monitor, their head resting on the desk. "Hands where I can see them," Price ordered, her rifle trained on the figure. The figure stirred, groaning as they lifted their head. It was a man, his face gaunt and pale, his eyes bloodshot. He raised his hands slowly, his movements sluggish. "I'm unarmed," he said, his voice hoarse. "Don't shoot." Price didn't lower her weapon. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The man blinked, his gaze shifting between us. "Name's Carter. I was monitoring the relay station. Saw your signal. Thought you might be Orpheus." "We're not," Price said. "Why are you here?" Carter hesitated, then gestured weakly to the monitor. "I've been tracking them. Their movements, their operations. trying to stay ahead of them. You're not alone out here, are you? Price's expression didn't change. What do you know about the safe zones? Carter's face fell. Most of them are compromised. The ones that aren't, they're under constant threat. Orpheus is spreading faster than anyone realizes. Can you help us? Green asked, stepping forward. We need access to their network. Anything that gives us an edge. Carter looked at her, then at the rest of us. For a moment, he seemed to weigh his options. Finally, he nodded. If you're serious about stopping them, I'll do what I can. But you'll need to protect me. They'll kill me if they find out I've been helping you. Then let's make sure they don't find out, Price said. She lowered her rifle slightly but didn't let her guard down. Pack up. You're coming with us. As Carter gathered his equipment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this alliance, however necessary, would only complicate an already dangerous situation. Still, if his information could give us an advantage, it was a risk we had to take. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, we had someone who might just tip the scales in our favor. 3 p.m. The tension in the group was palpable as Carter followed us back through the forest. His presence, though necessary, felt like a weight dragging on our already fragile cohesion. His wary glances and occasional stumbles through the underbrush didn't inspire confidence, but Green seemed encouraged by the data he carried on his portable drives. He's our best chance at cracking their operations, Green murmured as we moved in a staggered line. If what he says is true, this could be the turning point. If what he says is true, Price echoed, her tone edged with skepticism. She walked just ahead of Carter, her rifle slung across her chest but her hands ready. We're putting a lot on someone we know nothing about. I get it, Carter said, his voice low but sharp. You don't trust me. I wouldn't trust me either. But I didn't stay alive this long by working for Orpheus. Maria glanced back, her rifle swinging lazily but with intent. So why didn't they find you? Seems like a lot of effort for someone flying under the radar. Carter hesitated, his gaze flitting to the ground. I used to work for them. I know their systems because I built parts of them. But when I saw what they were planning, I ran. The group paused briefly, and even Green looked up from her pack, startled. Price's expression darkened, and she stepped closer to Carter, her voice dropping to a dangerous level. You built their systems? She asked. You were part of this? Carter raised his hands defensively. Not like that. I was just a tech. I didn't know what they were planning until it was too late. I've been fighting them ever since. Convenient story, Maria muttered. Enough, Price snapped. She pointed ahead. We keep moving. Carter, one wrong move, and you won't get another chance. Carter nodded, his face pale. Understood. The forest began to thin as we approached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. From our vantage point, we could see the faint outlines of buildings in the distance. Another abandoned facility, though smaller than the relay station. Smoke drifted lazily from one of the structures, a sign that someone, or something, had been there recently. That's where the next server hub should be, Carter said, pointing to the largest building. If we can access it, I can get into their deeper network. Maybe even disrupt the Inferno Protocol's timeline. Price scanned the valley with her binoculars. Looks quiet, but that doesn't mean it is. We'll split into 2 teams. Green Carter, you're with me. Maria, Tucker, Calloway, secure the perimeter. If there's anything lurking, I want to know about it before it knows about us. Maria nodded. Got it. Let's move. The interior of the facility was eerily similar to the relay station. Dust-covered consoles, scattered papers, and an air of abandonment that felt more oppressive than reassuring. Carter moved quickly to a central terminal, Green close behind him. This one's in better shape than I expected, Carter said, plugging in his portable drive. The terminal lit up, its screens flickering as lines of code began to scroll. Price stood guard near the entrance, her rifle ready. How long? Not long, Carter replied. Just need to bypass the... A sharp crack echoed through the building, followed by a low, guttural growl. Price spun toward the sound, her eyes narrowing. Maria, report. Maria's voice crackled over the radio. Movement outside. Looks like ferals. At least a dozen. Hold them off, Price said. We're almost done here. Green's voice was tight. Carter, whatever you're doing, do it faster. 4:10 p.m. The sound of gunfire erupted outside, the sharp cracks of Maria's rifle punctuated by Tucker's shotgun blasts. Inside, the tension was suffocating as Carter worked furiously, sweat dripping from his temple. I'm in, he said finally, downloading everything I can. This is holy shit. They've escalated. They're targeting not just cities, but entire regions. If this goes live, millions won't stand a chance. Then stop it, Price ordered. I'm trying, Carter said. But this system is more advanced than I expected. It's going to take... The door behind us slammed open, and a figure stepped through, their weapon raised. It wasn't a feral. It was Orpheus. Down! Price shouted, firing instinctively. The intruder collapsed, but the sound of boots outside told us this was just the beginning. We've been compromised, Price said into the radio. Fall back to the rendezvous point. Now. Green grabbed the laptop while Carter yanked his drive free. We bolted for the exit as the sound of approaching soldiers grew louder. Outside, the battle had intensified, the ferals now clashing with Orpheus troops as chaos engulfed the valley. We ran, the sound of gunfire and screams fading behind us. The forest swallowed us once more, its shadows deepening as the sun dipped lower in the sky. My chest burned, and my legs felt like lead, but I kept moving, Green and Carter close at my side. Did we get enough? I asked, my voice ragged. Carter's expression was grim. We got something, but whether it's enough to stop them, I don't know. Price glanced back, her face set in stone. Then we'll figure it out, one way or another. The fading light of the forest cast long shadows over the group as we moved, each step echoing with the weight of exhaustion and unease. The laptop strapped to Green's back was now a potential lifeline, or a beacon to every tracker Orpheus had sent after us. Price's hand shot up, signaling us to halt. She crouched low, her eyes scanning the dense underbrush ahead. What is it? Maria whispered, her rifle trained on the direction Price was looking. Price didn't answer immediately, her sharp gaze narrowing. Sounded like movement. Green, Carter, stay low. Tucker, Calloway, sweep left. Maria, on me. We'll circle around. Without a word, we fanned out, moving like shadows through the thick underbrush. Every crack of a branch underfoot or rustle of leaves felt deafening. My grip on the Halligan tool tightened as I strained to hear whatever had put Price on edge. 5:10 p.m. The forest's oppressive silence shattered with a sudden burst of gunfire. It came from our left, where Tucker and Calloway had gone. Maria and Price exchanged a quick look before surging forward, their weapons raised. I stayed close to Green and Carter, my heart pounding. Stay behind me, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. What's happening? Carter asked, his voice trembling. Trouble, I replied, keeping my eyes fixed ahead. The gunfire intensified, joined by the unmistakable snarls of ferals. Tucker's shotgun boomed repeatedly, each blast reverberating through the trees. Maria's rifle barked sharply, followed by Price's measured bursts. The fight was escalating fast. When we reached the clearing, the scene was chaos. Tucker and Calloway were pinned behind a fallen tree, their faces grim as they fired at a relentless wave of ferals surging from the shadows. The creatures moved with horrifying speed, their twisted forms illuminated by the flashes of gunfire. Hold the line, Price shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony. She and Maria took up positions, their rifles adding to the barrage. I pushed Green and Carter toward a cluster of boulders. Stay down and stay quiet, I said before joining the others. My Halligan tool felt heavy in my hands, but the familiar weight grounded me as I prepared to fight. A feral lunged at Tucker, its clawed hands reaching for him. He fired point blank, the shotgun blast tearing it apart. Another creature scrambled over the fallen tree, only to be taken down by Calloway's precise shot. There's too many of them, Maria shouted. We're not dying here. Price barked. Focus your fire. Take them down. Despite the feral's numbers, the tide began to turn. The group's coordinated firepower cut through the creatures, leaving a growing pile of twisted bodies in the clearing. But just as the last feral fell, the unmistakable hum of a drone filled the air. Orpheus, Price muttered, her eyes narrowing. They're tracking us. The drone's spotlight swept across the clearing, illuminating the carnage. Maria fired, the bullet striking the drone's camera. It spiraled out of control, crashing into the trees with a shower of sparks. Time to move, Price said. They'll send ground teams next. We moved quickly, the adrenaline from the fight still coursing through us. The forest seemed darker now, the trees pressing closer together as if trying to trap us. Green stumbled, her breathing ragged, but she kept pace. Where are we heading? Carter asked, his voice strained. There's a ridge up ahead, Price said. If we can reach it, we'll have the high ground. Better defensible. And after that? Maria asked. Price didn't answer immediately. Her silence spoke volumes. The ridge loomed ahead, its steep slope covered in loose rocks and tangled roots. We climbed in silence, each of us acutely aware of how exposed we were. The hum of more drones echoed faintly in the distance, growing louder with each passing minute. When we reached the top, the view was both breathtaking and chilling. The valley below was shrouded in mist, with scattered fires marking the remnants of other battles. In the distance, the faint glow of a larger Orpheus outpost was visible, its towering structure a grim reminder of the fight still ahead. Price surveyed the area, her expression unreadable. We'll set up here. Tucker, Calloway, secure the perimeter. Green, Carter, see what you can do with that data. We need options. As the group dispersed to their tasks, I stood at the edge of the ridge, my gaze fixed on the distant outpost. The weight of everything we had endured pressed down on me, but there was no time to dwell on it. The fight wasn't over, and the stakes had never been higher. We'll stop them, Price said, stepping beside me. Her voice was calm but resolute. Whatever it takes. I nodded, gripping the Halligan tool tightly. Whatever it takes. 6 p.m. The air atop the ridge was thin, and every breath felt heavier as we prepared for what was to come. The horizon burned faintly with the dying light of day, the fiery hues casting long shadows across the valley below. But the beauty of the scene was lost on us. Every mind was focused on survival. Green hunched over her laptop, her fingers a blur across the keyboard. Carter sat beside her, nervously glancing at the perimeter, his hands trembling as he adjusted the wires on a portable signal disruptor he'd cobbled together. How much longer? Price demanded, her rifle slung across her chest. Green didn't look up. Another 10 minutes, maybe less. This isn't like the relay station. Their encryption here is far more advanced. We don't have 10 minutes, Maria muttered, scanning the valley below with her rifle scope. They're mobilizing. I followed her gaze. Down in the mist-covered valley, faint silhouettes of vehicles and marching soldiers began to emerge. The sight sent a chill down my spine. Orpheus wasn't just tracking us. They were ready to annihilate us. Here, Price said, tossing me a pair of binoculars. See anything useful? I raised the binoculars and scanned the valley. The soldiers moved in tight formations, their gear gleaming under the distant floodlights of their mobile command units. Drones hovered above them, their spotlights slicing through the mist. Then I saw it, a cluster of fuel tanks near the center of their convoy. Fuel tanks, I said, lowering the binoculars. We hit those, we could slow them down. And draw every soldier in that convoy straight to us, Maria countered. We're not staying here, Price said, her tone final. But if we can buy ourselves time, we take it. Green, Carter, focus. We need that data now. The faint whir of a drone's engine broke the uneasy quiet. Tucker spotted it first, pointing to the sky as its spotlight swept over the ridge. Without hesitation, Maria fired, her rifle cracking through the stillness. The drone spiraled out of control, crashing into the trees below. They know we're here, Calloway said grimly. Price didn't flinch. Then we make this count. Maria, Tucker, cover the south approach. Calloway, you're with me on the east. Everyone else, hold your positions. Green, Carter, hurry. The first wave came quickly, a squad of Orpheus soldiers moving up the ridge, their movements precise and coordinated. Maria and Tucker opened fire, their shots sending 2 soldiers sprawling before the rest dove for cover. Return fire zipped through the air, ricocheting off rocks and kicking up plumes of dirt. I stayed near Green and Carter, my grip on the Halligan tool tightening with every burst of gunfire. Green's face was pale, but her focus didn't waver. "Almost there," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. A grenade landed nearby, its distinctive clink sending us scrambling. Price reacted instantly, grabbing the device and hurling it back down the slope. The explosion shook the ridge, sending a shockwave through my chest. "Stay focused," Price shouted. "We hold them here." The second wave was larger. More soldiers advanced, using drones as spotters to pinpoint our positions. Calloway's rifle barked repeatedly, each shot precise and deadly, but the sheer number of enemies was overwhelming. "We need to fall back," Maria yelled, her voice strained as she fired another burst. "Not until Green finishes," Price replied. Behind us, Carter let out a triumphant shout. "Got it. Data's downloaded." "And the disruptor?" Price asked, already moving to cover their retreat. "It's ready," Carter said, holding up the device. "It'll fry their comms in this area for at least 30 minutes. "Do it," Price ordered. Carter activated the disruptor, and a faint hum filled the air. The effect was immediate. The drones faltered, their movements erratic before crashing to the ground. The soldiers hesitated, their radios crackling with static. "Move," Price shouted. "Everyone fall back." We retreated through the forest, our movements quick and deliberate. The sounds of battle faded behind us, replaced by the steady rhythm of our pounding footsteps. My heart raced as we pushed deeper into the trees, the weight of the Halligan tool a reassuring presence in my hands. Price led us to a narrow stream and motioned for us to stop. "We'll follow this for a mile. It'll mask our trail." As we splashed into the cold water, I glanced back at Green and Carter. They both looked shaken but determined, their breaths coming in short gasps. "That data better be worth it," Maria muttered, her tone sharp but not unkind. Green nodded. "It is. But this is just the beginning." Price's gaze hardened. "Then let's make sure we're ready for what comes next." 7 p.m. The forest seemed alive with menace as we trudged through the stream, the cold water biting at our ankles. The sun had dipped below the horizon, and the twilight cloaked the trees in deepening shadows. Our retreat had bought us a temporary reprieve, but it was clear Orpheus wouldn't stop until we were found. Price took point, her rifle ready, her sharp gaze cutting through the darkened landscape. Tucker and Maria flanked the group, their weapons held low but at the ready. Green stumbled slightly as she navigated the uneven terrain, the weight of the laptop and the day's ordeal slowing her down. "You okay?" I asked, offering her a steadying hand. She nodded, her breath visible in the cool evening air. "I'll be fine. Just trying to keep up." "We all are," I said, adjusting my grip on the Halligan tool. Carter, trailing just behind us, glanced nervously at the forest. "They're not going to stop, are they?" "No," Price replied curtly, "but neither are we. Keep moving." The stream wound its way through a dense thicket, the branches overhead intertwining to form a natural tunnel. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and rotting leaves. The faint hum of distant drones had faded, but their absence didn't ease the tension. Maria held up a fist, signaling us to stop. She crouched low, her head cocked to the side as she listened. "What is it?" Tucker whispered. "Thought I heard something," Maria replied, her voice barely audible. "Movement, up ahead." Price motioned for us to fan out, each of us taking cover behind the thick trunks of ancient trees. The seconds stretched into an eternity, every rustle of the leaves or creak of a branch sending my pulse racing. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was humanoid, but its movements were unnatural, jerky. Its skin, pale and mottled, caught the faint light filtering through the canopy. A feral. Maria didn't hesitate. Her rifle cracked, the shot echoing through the forest. The feral collapsed, its grotesque form twitching as it hit the ground. But the sound of the shot had stirred more than just the leaves. "They're coming," Price said sharply. "Move." The forest erupted into chaos. The guttural snarls of ferals mixed with the distant shouts of Orpheus soldiers. The group sprinted through the underbrush, the pale figures of the ferals emerging from the gloom like specters. Maria and Tucker fired in controlled bursts, their shots lighting up the darkness for fleeting moments. "Green Carter, stay close," Price barked, her voice cutting through the din. I swung the Halligan tool at a feral that lunged from the shadows, the impact sending it sprawling. Another followed, its jaws snapping inches from my face before a shotgun blast from Tucker dropped it. "Keep moving," he yelled, reloading as he ran. The group pushed forward, the forest thinning as we approached a steep incline. The ground beneath our feet was loose and treacherous, slowing our escape. "Up the hill," Price commanded. "We'll hold them at the top." We reached the crest of the hill, a narrow plateau offering a brief respite. The forest below was alive with movement, the pale forms of ferals and the dark figures of soldiers clashing as they pursued us. Price quickly organized our defense, positioning Maria and Tucker on the flanks while Calloway and I reinforced the center. "Green Carter, get that disruptor ready again," Price said. "We need to disable their comms." "I'm on it," Carter said, his voice shaking as he fumbled with the device. Green knelt beside him, offering steady hands and whispered instructions. The first ferals reached the top of the hill, their snarls filling the air. Maria and Tucker opened fire, their shots precise and unrelenting. I swung the Halligan tool at another, its grotesque form crumpling under the blow. Beside me, Calloway fired in short bursts, his expression grim but focused. "They're flanking left," Maria shouted, shifting her aim to cover the new approach. "Hold the line," Price yelled, her rifle barking as she took down another feral. 8:15 p.m. Carter let out a triumphant shout. "Disruptors live." The air filled with a low hum as the device activated. Below us, the drones faltered, their lights flickering before they crashed into the trees. The soldiers hesitated, their radios crackling with static. The tide of the battle shifted, but the ferals showed no sign of slowing. "We can't hold this position forever," Maria said, her voice strained as she reloaded. Price nodded. "We don't need forever, just enough to make them bleed." The fight continued, every second a test of endurance and will. But even as the ferals kept coming, and the soldiers regrouped below, there was a glimmer of hope. We were still standing, and for now, that was enough. The ridge was quiet for a fleeting moment, the air heavy with the scent of gunpowder and blood. Our breaths came in ragged gasps, each of us taking stock of our dwindling ammunition and the thinning defenses around us. Below, the forest writhed with shadows, the ferals, relentless, undeterred, gathering for another assault. And somewhere deeper in that chaos, Orpheus soldiers bided their time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "We can't keep this up," Maria said, wiping blood from a cut on her cheek. "We're running low on everything." "We're holding," Price said firmly. Her tone brokered no argument, but even she couldn't hide the strain in her voice. Green's voice broke through the tension. "The disruptor bought us time, but it's a temporary fix. Their systems will recalibrate soon, and then we'll be back on their radar." "How soon?" I asked, gripping the Halligan tool as my eyes scanned the tree line. Carter hesitated, glancing at Green before replying. "An hour, maybe less. They're fast when it comes to recovery." Price nodded, her mind already calculating. "Then we make this hour count. Tucker, Calloway, start rigging the ridge with whatever explosives we have left. Maria, Green, keep watch on the perimeter. Carter, show me the data we pulled. I need to know what we're up against." "And me?" I asked. Price's gaze met mine. "You're with me. We're going to make sure this ridge isn't easy to take." The preparations were frantic but methodical, every movement driven by the looming threat of another attack. Tucker and Calloway worked quickly, rigging makeshift charges along the slope of the ridge. Carter and Green pored over the laptop, their whispered exchanges punctuated by the occasional frustrated sigh. "This isn't just about us," Carter said, his voice grim. "Orpheus is consolidating their resources for something big. These safe zones, these operations, they're testing grounds." "Testing what?" Price asked, leaning over his shoulder. Control, Green answered. Every movement, every outbreak, it's orchestrated. They're not just containing the chaos, they're steering it. Price's expression hardened. Then we hit them where it hurts. Take out their command structure. Carter shook his head. Easier said than done. They've got redundancies. Cutting one head off just makes the others stronger. We'll find a way, Price said, her voice like steel. For now, we survive. 9 p.m. The first sounds of the next wave reached us. Low growls and the snapping of branches as the ferals closed in. Maria raised her rifle, her eyes narrowing as she scanned the darkness. Here they come, she muttered. The ferals burst from the tree line in a chaotic surge, their pale forms glinting in the moonlight. They moved with terrifying speed, their guttural snarls filling the night air. Maria fired first, her shot taking down a lead feral mid-stride. The rest of us followed suit, the ridge erupting into a cacophony of gunfire and shouts. Keep them off the charges, Tucker yelled, his shotgun roaring as he blasted a feral off the slope. I swung the Halligan tool with all my strength, the weight of it driving back a feral that lunged too close. Its body crumpled, but another took its place almost immediately. Around me, the group fought with a desperation born of survival, every shot and swing of a weapon a testament to our refusal to fall. The ferals' numbers began to dwindle, their snarls giving way to the heavy silence of the forest. But the victory was short-lived. The sound of boots on gravel signaled the arrival of Orpheus soldiers. Their disciplined movements were a stark contrast to the ferals' wild chaos. Hold your fire until they're in range, Price ordered, her voice calm despite the tension. The soldiers advanced, their tactical lights cutting through the darkness. One of them barked an order, and a hail of gunfire erupted, forcing us to take cover. Now, Price shouted. The charges Tucker and Calloway had rigged detonated in a deafening series of explosions, the shockwaves shaking the ridge. Fire and debris tore through the advancing soldiers, their formation breaking apart in the chaos. Maria and Tucker seized the opportunity, their weapons cutting down the disoriented survivors. The battle subsided, leaving the ridge littered with bodies and the acrid smell of smoke hanging in the air. We regrouped near the center, our breaths heavy, our faces streaked with dirt and sweat. Status? Price asked, her rifle still at the ready. We're clear, Maria said, her tone weary. For now. Green glanced at her laptop, her expression troubled. They'll be back. And they'll come harder next time. Price nodded. Then we make sure we're ready. No more running. No more hiding. It's time to fight back. The resolve in her voice was contagious, igniting a spark of determination in all of us. The shadows of the night still loomed, but for the first time, they didn't feel insurmountable. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were fighting for something greater.